Fellow rebels, joining me in my cell here today is a member of the OG Rebellion. He's brought you passion, he's brought you feels. He's one of the creators of the second most iconic canon ship in the whole story, and he was one of the first people to go out of his way to thread with me instead of vice versa, for reasons I'm still unclear on. People of the Grounded Dungeon, I give you Cass.
Hello.
Hello, Cass. Thank you for joining me here today. Back in the Grounded Dungeon. Do I have a name for this podcast? The introduction I'm going to be putting into it after this recording is done will say yes, but right now, the answer is actually no.
That is very fair.
Yep.
I don't have any suggestions if you were fishing for them.
Well, plans have now failed. Either way, the intention behind this is to just kind of look back on everything with what happened with Battle of the Grounded Dungeon, and talk about it and your part in it, your characters, everything as a whole. And I think the best launching point for that is, how did everything start for you? What is your Battle of the Grounded Dungeon discovery story?
Okay, so I already followed Haddock on Tumblr because I discovered that the How to Train Your Dragon fandom existed on Tumblr. And, okay, so this was right after I started high school, I remember this. This was when I still had enforced bedtime. So I got off the computer the night it all started before I saw anything that was going on. The next morning, I get out of bed, I go over to my computer, I turn everything on, and I'm just sitting there like, what the fuck happened last night?
That's beautiful.
I think I actually sent that exact message to Haddock. And I saw that people were just jumping in, and I was like, I haven't roleplayed anything in a while. I'm gonna jump right in. Because I actually used to do forum roleplaying back when I was 10, 11. On this one website called Foo Pets, which was like virtual pets, but it also had a roleplay board. And so I got into it.
That's neat. Because it's neat that you had the background in it before, because I was never able to figure out the exact ratio of how many people had RP'd before when Battle of the Grounded Dungeon happened, and how many people just went into it completely blind. So right now, the score is 1-0.
I guess so.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was just trying to sort out something to say. You go.
Okay, well, a lot of this is going to be us kind of fishing around to find out what conversation really takes off, but just, I can edit out any awkward parts, so we're good.
Yeah.
Well, and I love how everything blew up. With like, even the How to Train Your Dragon fandom didn't know what was going on when Battle of the Grounded Dungeon suddenly just, like, mutated into what it became.
Yeah, that was astonishing to watch. Some people did not react so well, I remember that.
Oh?
But those of us who stayed had a lot of fun. Actually, Tree mentioned to me, there was one time there was like a movie stream going on and someone jokingly went, "You're grounded," after the dungeon had blown up. And some people who weren't in Battle of the Grounded Dungeon reacted very poorly to that. But within the group, it was a lot of fun.
I might have missed something. I'm going to make sure that I have this understood. Why did people take exception to a comment like "You're grounded"? Were they annoyed with Battle of the Grounded Dungeon, or did they just think someone was making a joke that wasn't funny because they didn't know what was going on?
My understanding from what Tree said is that they were annoyed with Battle of the Grounded Dungeon.
Oh, whoops. Did we do that? I don't remember.
We did.
That's something where, I missed a lot of the beginning, tension that happened with Battle of the Grounded Dungeon. Because I know there was a period where there were people who were, feeling like there was exclusion going on, and I think because absolutely everyone had no idea what was going on, but we were like gripping onto it with both hands and going for the ride anyway. I think it caused some miscommunications and got under people's skins, and it kind of got itself a little more sorted out by the time you hit season 2, where everyone was a little bit better about getting circular threading going on and making sure that they basically the trick was never saying no to a thread. Always ask someone to do a thread and never say no, because that way, you just are able to build the story that way.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. And my role-playing background, it was usually only like 3 people to a certain scene, so the big group threads overwhelmed me, and they still do. But it's always fun to see how they go.
I feel ya. I'll be the first to admit that as soon as a thread gets like more than 3 or 4 people on it, I go and hide. I hide and I watch from afar, or I just stumble in later on and be like, "So what happened?" Maybe not the best.
A little bit.
Maybe not the best way to handle stuff, but some of that is schedule. Taking care of the IRL schedule.
Yeah, because real life always comes first.
It does, and I like how that was always a rule.
Day one.
Yeah. I loved how that was a rule.
Gosh, I remember, because I did still have the enforced bedtime, because I was a freshman in high school.
Right.
And I remember I'd be on the group calls, and my mom would knock on the door and be like, "You have to go to bed now," and I'd be like, "Mom, just 30 more minutes, please."
Oh, yes.
And now, nobody says a word if I'm up till 4 in the morning. Nobody cares.
There you go.
Like, this is what adulthood feels like.
I would remember getting done with classes for a day and sprinting home, getting up on the group chat, and just waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
Because in those days, something was always going to blow up at some point. Which brings another question. So, let's take your first character was Clover, correct?
Oh yes.
Okay. So let's just, since this, a lot of these episodes will kind of cycle around the relationship between you and your main character, or main characters as time goes on. What inspired the creation of Clover? There's no wrong answer, I'm just curious what was going on. I know mine was a self-insert right from the get-go, but I already knew that. I wanted to jump into a world as myself and live a different life for a while, so that's where that came from. But what about yours?
Clover wasn't quite a self-insert, but I wouldn't say she wasn't either. She was kind of in that gray area.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember everything that inspired her. I just remember there was like this little part in the back of my head that kind of came forward as the character. And I do remember, though, is I knew what she looked like from the very beginning.
Oh, now that's cool.
Yeah. Like, I knew how tall she was. I knew that she had long, blonde, and curly hair, like Merida hair, almost.
Mm-hmm.
But blonde. I knew that her eyes were gray. And I didn't know the half-breed thing at first, but when that came around, I jumped on that real quick.
Nice.
Yeah. I think...
Well, oftentimes having...
That much thought.
Go ahead.
There wasn't that much thought that went into making Clover in the first place.
And that's kind of cool, because that's what happened with the entire story. There was no thought whatsoever with what it went to. And I mean, in the later seasons, there was a lot more planning. But early on with the character creation, I noticed how people would go in with nothing, and they would make absolutely everything with the character.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, so when did things really take off for Clover? When was the moment you were like, oh, holy crap, this is a character with some serious weight, and now she's involved with this, that, and the other thing, and this is her niche in the story, and when everything got real, so to speak?
Okay, well, there are 2 things for that, then. The first one was when the warden started possessing half-breeds. I went over to Tree and went, maybe we could do a little thing and the warden could possess Clover for a bit. And we did that. Which is how she got locked up by King Haddock.
Oh, that was a good part.
And then later on, when Austin joined us as Tez,
mm-hmm.
That was when I really was like, alright, I think I know what we're doing here, and that's also where Clover's role as being basically a mom came up, because the first mission she went on with Tez is when they found Malira.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ship went not very far after.
Oh yeah, that ship had like full sails.
Oh yeah.
Everyone was on deck for that one.
Yeah. We were all just shippers on deck. The second I realized this could work, I went over to Austin and went, hey, can we do this thing? And he said yes, and it happened.
There we go. Now I have to try to hunt down Austin to see his side of the Clovert story, because that's just going to add some fun symmetry to everything.
Oh, it probably will, yeah. I'd love to hear what he had to say about that.
Well, hopefully you will, because recordings. But
yeah.
he's also hard to catch.
Yeah, he's a busy man.
He'll show up in the cursed content section of the chat every once in a while and bless us with some images, and then after that he's gone again.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Good old Tez.
I know he works a lot, so I'd say talk to Tree to try and get a hold of him.
Now, why would Tree know anything about Tez? Strange suggestion.
Maybe because IRL they banging. They're gonna shoot me for saying
Oh wait, guess what? This thing's going. You know that I told you this was a podcast that was being recorded, so everything that you say is on you, my friend.
Oh yes.
Okay.
I couldn't resist. I saw the opportunity. I had to take it. They're gonna shoot me for it, but I don't care.
Good. I'll give you asylum here in Florida. You just like surf out of the way of the bullet. So what was so speaking from the character's perspective, what was the thing that oh wait, no, let me preface this with a different question. You messaged Tez about whether Clover would be a thing, but was it your idea, so to speak, or was it Clover's idea, so to speak?
I think a bit of both, really.
Okay.
Because I had been like, I want to do more stuff with the other characters, and then with Clover, you know, I started doing that thread with her and Tez, and she was like, and things went from there.
So did Clover, so let's like kind of like a meeting in the middle of that one, was there ever a moment that Clover just took the reins right out of your hands as far as the story went, and went on a wild ride without your permission?
Oh, yes. Actually, this has to do with you.
Oh no,
she
do
didn't
tell.
know Stone yet.
Really?
Yeah, she was like, this one is my friend, this one is my people, I'm keeping him.
Okay.
Okay. Alright then.
I was gonna bring this up as like a tailored question for just your interview when I alluded to it in the introduction. That was something where,
You sure did.
Yeah, it's like that was something that even when I went back through Tree's fanfiction, reading through the whole story, I was sitting there going, now why the hell is she doing this?
She felt like it.
And that's kind of awesome, because it's something that has always confused Stonegate. Like, even before he went psycho bonkers in Season 3.
Yeah.
He never got it. It never clicked with him why she wanted to be his friend. So that's very interesting, that was a reins taken away from the Mun moment, because that means it's shrouded in even more mystery.
Yeah. Like, I couldn't even begin to tell you what went on in her head saying, this one is my people now. But, you know, it was a thing that happened, and I just rolled with it. And that one part where he was unconscious, you know, after losing his soul and all, I did get to pull the reins back enough to do the "You're my best friend, bud" reference.
Yes. Which we always want those.
Yes, I was just, like, hands in the air, just, yes!
I got it.
After I realized I could make that work.
Yes. That is so interesting, because I remember role-playing with you, and there was a moment where I was like, man, Cass is really set on Clover being Stonegit's friend. I can't put a finger on it, and therefore I don't really know what direction I need to go in. Like, I don't know if I didn't know whether something was expected of Stonegit or not, and he ended up just being confused. And now years later, finding out that you were just about as confused as I was about the whole thing is even better. Because that's an element of consistency that we see with the story of the characters take on their own lives, and the Muns kind of sit back and go, well, I can't stop them. What do you want me to do?
Exactly. That's kind of how things are with William, her son, at the moment in our current season.
Okay.
Because with Asha, she's together with Siri, Asha's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
That just happened. We went like, okay, let's push them together and see what happens. And then those two just took it and ran with it. And we're like, okay, have fun, be safe.
It's like, let's see if they get along. Oh, okay, that worked really, really, really well.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Nice. Well, and so, going off of that, what would you say, going back to Clover, given the muses having a tendency to run off and do their own thing, what was the thing about Tez that really intrigued Clover? Like, what's the spark that set that ship off onto its big voyage that everyone could, rally behind?
Well, that's an interesting question.
If there's no answer, that's fine. There's plenty of other questions to ask.
No, there probably is an answer. I just have to sort through it for a moment.
Okay.
Well, I don't know how much of this is a joke and how much it isn't, because Clover doesn't tell me everything she's thinking.
Uh-huh.
But the fact that he was not towering over her, like almost everybody else.
Yes.
Shorty Squad was Clover, Tez, and Aki, the only 3 people who were 5 foot tall.
Oh gosh.
There was that element to it.
And I remember again rereading everything, reading that Tez was like really short, and I remember pulling this completely separate document of my own BotGD notes just for me to keep the story sorted out in my mind. And one of my notes is just Tez is short. Period. It's like, don't forget this. He's not tall. The White Knight is not tall.
Yep. That's... Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, well, maybe the Mun isn't that tall, and then I found out Austin's 6'2", and I was really upset.
Oh, shit. I didn't realize he was that tall.
He's exactly a foot taller than I can just feel your unimpressed stare.
Clover. Cass. I can edit this shit out.
I'll just...
So, looking at my other list of relevant questions... Let me find one. Okay, oh god, you've pissed me off. Now I'm trying to think of something that I actually want to talk about.
I'd say I'm sorry, but I'm really not.
Well, why would you? You're excessively cruel to me, like all the time, Cass. I don't know why.
Maybe because with your angstiness, you bring it upon yourself.
Angstiness? I'm not angsty. I'm just writing from the heart.
You certainly write some of the worst angst. Good lord. I mean, first scene we do with Clover and Blunt when we restarted Battle of the Grand Dungeon 2, and you made her cry.
Now, just a second. He was trying to help her. He was actually being a very good friend.
Yeah, but he still made her cry.
Yes, but for a good reason. It's like he was trying to help her get all the hurt out and process her grief and be there to support her and show that he...
That kind of worked, kind of didn't.
Oh, yeah.
I actually think after Darien came to Halligan, or more like she frog marched into Halligan, with her dragon, I believe his name is Windchaser. I wrote it down somewhere, and just off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure that's what his name is. And actually spending time with him fixing Halligan's disaster of the library helped more than talking to Blunt did, because she's had the time to work things over with him, I think.
With Darien?
Yeah.
That's a lot to work over. But that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's
we don't have an exact time frame of how long they were on the island before the raid.
Right.
But they've been working on the library a lot, and she's been giving him books and stuff. And actually, I decided, because Lord of the Rings is completely made up, why doesn't it exist in our world? We've always pulled from other media.
Oh, yeah.
So she shoved all the Lord of the Rings books at Darien.
Perfect. And yeah, that makes sense, because it's like a lot of times in situations where there's heartache and grief, talking about it, although necessary, is a particularly hard thing to do. It's it's something that is, nothing's left except just to feel the raw emotion of what's happened. Whereas if you're in a situation where you find yourself in, out actively working with something directly related to where a lot of the source of the grief comes from, and I don't think there's a better example of that than Darien, because he was like the reason there's 90% of the crap going on today. Being able to work in an environment where you're actually taking constructive steps towards something better that makes sense how that would be something that would accelerate someone's emotional healing.
Yeah. And there's also the fact that, Darien was behind the dungeons, but more personally, he is also the person who created Feral Tez.
Mm-hmm.
Which, that was a big problem, because Feral Tez almost killed the both of them, like normal Tez and then Clover.
Yeah.
So,
Feral,
was interesting. Getting the opportunity to thread with Darien when he came to the library near Perch Hall, because that was where it started, with Clover seeing him again for the first time since he was at the rebellion camp. Back when she decided, okay, maybe I won't murder Blunt yet.
Where she gave him that 1 second chance that he was very grateful for.
Yes. And then she wound up tolerating him because he wanted to save Stonegate, and then they became friends somehow.
That seems to be a consistent, how do I put this, occurrence with my characters and yours, where they become friends somehow.
Yep.
And yet,
although I have noticed, none of your characters have tried to befriend William, which is probably for the best, because he's got his father's white knight complex and his mother's temper.
Ooh. Well, here's the thing about that. Stonegate is always open to try to deliver a level head to the wilder, younger members of the rebellion. And Blunt is always willing to give them alcohol when they're nowhere near old enough to have it, and cause a bunch of problems. So, whatever route you want to take, I am one private message away and we can get threading.
I mean, William has a better handle on his temper than Clover ever did.
Given that Blunt had a clawed-up face the one time, I imagine so.
Listen, he was pushing her buttons and she lost her temper.
Yes, he pushed her buttons and she pushed right through his skin.
Yes.
With claws.
I'm pretty sure we made that exact joke before.
Have we?
I'm pretty sure we did, because that sounds very familiar.
Man, maybe it's just deja vu.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, go ahead.
So I haven't had anything where Will freaking blew up yet, but if he does, it will be about that spectacular. So, like, he's got a lot more of the level-headedness that Tez had, along with the white knight complex that makes me so afraid. Because it means my boy's gonna do something real stupid.
Yeah, like,
there's nothing I could do about it.
I mean,
that's gonna be one of those things where he's going to say all the words that are going to be typed out by me, and I'm just gonna have to sit there and go, no, I don't like this, while typing.
Yep. Oh, I can't be stopped. Hits enter. Oh, what have you done, William?
Exactly.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
I'm sure you do.
Okay, you know what? Maybe that's not fair. I think someone that's a little more sympathetic to your situation is Haddock.
Probably.
He definitely has more of the moment of, oh, please don't say that, and then Kane Haddock goes and says it anyway. I will admit
oh god, half the things Mara says.
Now that I feel is deliberate. Like that might be the thing that Mara would say, but Kane's gonna be giggling the whole time he's typing up Mara's comments.
That's true, but I don't think he's the one who comes up with them. I think Mara just goes, we're going to say this now.
That's also true. Gareth, on the other hand, has got to cause him a certain level of distress.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. We actually once played a game of Never Have I Ever as our characters.
Oh yes.
That was the most delightful thing. If we could ever get everyone together in the Discord group chat, that would be really fun to do.
Oh, I would be down for that.
Or if we were to revisit the Cards Against Humanity that we used to do. I still have some screen caps from that.
Oh, those were beautiful. Oh, but here's the question. Now I would have to figure out what character I'd want to play as in Never Have I Ever, because, like, Stonegit is more so on my, plane of thinking, but Blunt's just way too much fun to play Never Have I Ever with.
See, I'd say go for Blunt, because that would be goddamn hilarious.
Go for the comedy, alright.
And if you were to do Blunt, I would probably go as Clover just to see them play off of each other.
Yes! I have got, Blunt, out of all the friends Blunt has, he torments Clover the most.
I noticed.
Very pointedly, he gets a real kick out of that.
Yeah. I'm sure at least once she threatened to castrate him.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely happened. I think that's happened. I think Clover's done that. I think Kiri's done that. And I'm pretty sure at some point Star-Lord did that, or at least was piggybacking off of what Kiri was saying. So yeah, that's gone all around.
Star-Lord was present when Clover scratched up Blunt's face.
Yes, those three were in that scene. Kiri came in later, but those three in that scene.
I mean, I don't think I ever wrote it that Clover threatened to castrate him, but I could just feel it in my bones that that's something she would have done.
Yes, especially over the span of knowing each other for 25 years.
Yes. But it's probably been made more than once.
And if it hasn't happened yet, Blunt's still alive, so it's not like he's not going to say something that would warrant her retaliating with that threat. Because he would.
Yeah. I bet one time he said it and she reached for a knife.
He'd move.
And made the threat.
He'd bail. He'd take care of the suspension of belief later. He would bounce in the time being.
I'm sure he would.
Something else I've been wondering is that, looking back, I know that at least for my muses, I saw a piece of myself in each of the muses that I wrote by mistake. I didn't realize how big a part of me was in each one. And I'd have moments where I would either have to contend with a negative attribute of that, or I'd have to get in better touch with a positive attribute. And that was one of the biggest learning experiences that I've had with Battle of the Grounded Dungeon. So my question is, what would you say is the biggest learning experience for you, looking back on all of this that has happened?
That's an interesting question. Well, I don't know with the learning experience exactly, but I can answer to the first part. with what I noticed was a part of. Why is my cat yelling?
Because it's a cat.
What I knew. Yeah.
There's a cat in the dungeon, ladies and gentlemen, and everything else in between.
Yeah, I call him the whiny bastard cat.
That works. Do you call everything that contends with you in some way a bastard of some kind?
Not everything. You're just unique.
Oh, so I'm like your cat. That's good.
We'll go with that.
Okay.
Anyway, so I noticed a big part of myself that I put into Clover. If you want me to answer to that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it until a bit later, but I've known everyone in the dungeon long enough. I don't feel uncomfortable talking about this. Is before I started high school, I had some really bad mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
I actually almost committed suicide.
Oh.
And like being in the group, as well as away from the situation that I had been put into, that made things so bad. All of that helped a lot. But if you look back at the older stuff, especially around season 3, actually, when Clover was spectacularly unstable, a lot of that was somewhat based on some of the issues I was having, and that's actually also why I bailed out towards the end, was because I was having issues, and I'm doing a lot better now.
That's good to hear.
But Clover definitely had some similar issues, and some of her having the issues helped me work through it, and in other ways it didn't really help, but putting it out there still felt better than not saying anything.
Yeah. Okay. And now, real quick, just for disclosure and for all formalities, do you want me to cut any of this part here?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Making sure, man.
I mean, yeah. It's not like this is going to be spread to every corner of the internet, and besides, it's not like my full name's attached to it, so it doesn't matter.
True. No, I did. What I was going to be doing was putting this, like, just how Tree put the animated thing that she made on YouTube. I was going to put this on YouTube, which is why I asked, because I don't want to put anything up that no one wants. I was either going to put it on my main account or make a strictly Battle the Ground to Dungeon side account.
I would suggest the side account, but no, I don't mind. I wouldn't have brought it up if I minded.
I'll make a side account just because, I don't want to cross any real lines, man. I'm fine crossing every line I could get away with and get yelled at, but not ever a real one.
Yeah, like fictional lines are fun to play jump rope with. The real life lines are the ones you got to be careful with.
Exactly.
But I don't mind.
Okay. Well, and it's like what you're talking about. Really, that's why a lot of people like recommend journaling and everything like that, because there's something about, and why a lot of people find a lot of expression in fan fiction, because there's something about writing out both the good, the bad, and the ugly of real life into a creative work. Something about it helps people sort stuff out, even if it's in a small way.
Yeah.
So I totally get that, of writing the struggles into a character, so that there's a way that it can be known without it, supernovaing all over what you're doing in real life.
Yeah. That part didn't really work out so great for me, but now I have those extra years of experience, so now it's just a purely fictional exercise.
Right.
Like, there's only one line I won't cross in fiction, and that is harming children.
That's fair.
Yeah, 'cause, that's just the one I won't cross, but I'll play jump rope with just about any other line. And it's fun, because fiction is a great way to explore those things you would never do in real life, things you would never say, without any real person being hurt. You're just hurting characters on paper.
And boy, do so many of the characters in this story get absolutely worked over by life.
Oh, yes.
Like, is there a character in Battle of the Grounded Dungeon that didn't get beat to hell in some way? I can't actually think of one who didn't.
Maybe some of the second generation in Battle of the Grounded Dungeon 2.
Yet. That's still going, though, man.
Yeah. They haven't gotten it yet, but it's damn near inevitable because that's just how we are as a group.
Oh, man. I think this is why the muses decide to take on a life of their own, because they know that they're going to have to put up with a certain level of our crap as muns. So at some point they're like, I'm grabbing these reins because I know you're going to put me through the ringer, so I'm taking this victory. Have fun.
Yeah, I honestly think that's exactly what Clover did to me, because she really took over after I had her possessed by the warden. So I think she knew.
It's like, enough of this garbage!
Yeah.
I'm done!
She knew.
Demon possessing!
Was going to happen.
Oh my gosh. So, we are at... I meticulously went through to collect up as much artwork as possible, and I think I got all of it, actually. There is over 1,000 pieces of artwork for Battle of the Grounded Dungeon. And that does...
Jeez.
Yeah! That.
I mean, on the one hand, that doesn't surprise me, but on the other, that's a staggering amount of art.
It is. And that's not even including my MS Paint comics, because I refuse to count those. They serve
They're so funny, though.
They serve an entirely different purpose, though, from actual artwork.
True.
But
I especially loved that one that you made after Blunt showed up and everyone else was trying to get in on the ship game.
My gosh. It's like I walked him in and I'm like, this is a snake oil salesman. How are you guys doing this?
Because most of us were horny teenagers and he was hot.
Yes, but that was the point. He was supposed to look good while being a total scumbag.
It didn't change the fact that some of the characters wanted to climb him like a tree.
Well, I mean, he was more than happy for that, but the problem is that I was worried about permanent ships. It's like Blunt is absolutely the type of person where it's like, oh, you're interested? Me too, let's do it. But then I would have to contend with the fact of, wait a minute, you guys realize that this guy is not in for anything long term, right? So I actually had to put the kiboshes to some things just to make sure that there wasn't that.
Yeah.
I didn't even want the Mun tension caught off on that flack.
Yeah.
I had to pass hardcore.
Yeah, but then he winds up with Stonegate for 25 years. So
He does.
People change.
And I have to mention, because it's my favorite, in the other universe he's with Aki, and I'm never gonna have an opportunity to not mention that.
Of course.
It's a beautiful thing.
I didn't read most of that.
That's fine.
I not that I'm not interested, it's just that's a lot of threads to parse.
Yeah.
Not in our canon.
Yeah.
I love seeing everybody else lose their collective minds over what you two are up to. It amuses me greatly.
I think the favorite thing that came out of that was the church meme.
Yes.
Regarding that one will always be a favorite. But oh man, what was I saying? Oh yeah, okay, so the artwork. So we have over 1,000 pieces of artwork. And we have the animated video that Tree made that has staggering views for something obscure like Battle of the Grounded Dungeon. A wiki that is far from complete, but still, like, if you Google search it, it shows up.
Mm-hmm.
What are your feelings about how Battle of the Grounded Dungeon turned into a micro fandom with this insanely dedicated fan base that even after like 5 years of basically nothing, suddenly showed back up and was like, hey, let's do it all again?
I don't even know if I have the words for it. It's incredible. Like, I would never have expected it getting involved in the first place. I was just like, oh, this will be fun for a day or two. And now here I am.
Yes.
5 years later. And I'm like, this is fantastic. Like, I went to Colorado for the first time last year just to meet Haddock, who I met because of the nonsense that we started.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really something. I had my first girlfriend because of that. Because I dated Star-Lord for a while.
Oh, that's right.
real life impacts are incredible, because, like, Austin and Tree are getting married, and they met because of this. And so much has changed in our real lives because we all met through this roleplay that we still care about so much today. And it's... I don't know that I really have all the words that I would need to properly describe how that feels.
It's almost like just describing what happened as a result of it is words of itself. Because,
that's true.
Like you said, so many real life things have happened because of this. And
Yeah.
it's like, I know what I've been doing. It's like I was... For the past few... Okay, it helps that I haven't gotten a job yet down here, but for the past few weeks, I've been just going through hundreds of pages of fanfiction just to add the touch-ups to make it readable so that I can share it with my family, at least where my muses are concerned, and, you know, putting in edits and then having Tree approve them or bounce back and forth with me with different ideas, and seeing how Soul Pitch is logged in doing the same thing, and just thinking, holy crap. It's like 5 years later, and I'm going through the whole thing all over again just to do minor edits, just so that I can read it to my wife, just so that she can really understand what is up with this story and why I've obsessed for it for so long. And it was back in the very... You guys were like my first friend group back in college.
Yeah.
And it's like, it was nuts.
Yeah. Going back to the rather dark stuff I said earlier, is I've said this before, and I will say it until the end of time, is I don't know if I'd still be here today without the people I met through Battle of the Grounded Dungeon. Like, it was huge. And it saved me.
Wow.
So I will always be grateful for it, even if someday it dies out and we never go back to it.
If that's fated to happen, we're doing a really shit job at getting it going.
Yeah. But, like, if someday far in the future that happens, I'm always going to remember it, even if a lot of the details are fuzzy for me now. I'm always going to remember that it was a thing that happened and that I probably wouldn't be here without it.
Yeah. And that's... Again, that's huge.
Yeah.
I've heard multiple accounts of people who either wouldn't have gained something or would have lost something, just critical, if it wasn't for this. And that's, you know, that's why it really makes me think that it wasn't just one of those things where you were into it for a bit and then it fades away. This is something that's going to carry on for a while because, again, we're here. We're real no good reason for all of us to have come back at the same time and to get things going all over again.
Yeah, especially since so many of us have adult lives that we need to worry about now.
Right.
And I don't have a job at the moment because there's a hiring freeze in my city due to the new mayor.
Ew.
For all city public works, and since I want to work at the public library, I am at a standstill at present.
Ew.
But, like, I'm planning to do that, and then I will have less free time, but probably most of it will still be spent with one eye on Discord, keeping an eye out on what's going on.
Always. That, oh my god, do you remember the the chat groups? Like the old attempts to have everyone in the same place for a chat?
Oh god.
Holy crap. Like I would have like a file with a document with a single link on it to keep track of that, and then I'd get on there and everything would be fine, and then one anon troublemaker would get on the chat and we'd have to go to we'd have to migrate somewhere totally different. And
yeah.
So I think when everyone brought the Discord chat up, I was kind of sitting there going, alright, when is all this going to fall apart? And then I'm like, oh wait, it won't, because it's Discord. Right.
Yeah, and it's invite only.
Right.
So there's no way for an anon to get on and just ruin everything. And it's nice. Also, Discord has a search feature.
Yes, that helps too. Lots of features,
A
actually.
functional search feature, unlike
Cough.
a certain website I could name.
Cough. Mm-hmm. And that goes as like I was just thinking about the Anons. It kind of goes back to like I always wonder. It's never happened to me, but I wonder if it happened to any of you guys where it's like, because I have a small blog. I'm tiny. That no one notices me, but like a lot of you guys have bigger blogs. I'm wondering if like the posting of Battle of the Grounded Dungeon, does it ever attract attention of people being like, "Oh my God, it's still here. Why?"
I actually have a blog I set up specifically for role-playing, so I don't have that. The only followers I have on that blog are Battle of the Grounded Dungeon.
Okay.
And I don't use the main blog I used to use during the first Battle of the Grounded Dungeon. I completely moved blogs because, let's just say the Dragon Age fandom is nasty, and I was getting rather harassed, so I just moved blogs. I'm in a better place to deal with that now. If someone tried to harass me now, I'd probably just tell them to fuck off.
Oh, that's
in
good.
about
That's
4
a
different
response.
languages. But, it's... So I don't have that issue. I wouldn't be surprised if others do, but I don't have it myself.
It always is even if it's completely fictional, it's always been a humorous thought of to me, to think of someone who saw all the craziness of Battle of the Grounded Dungeon, and then for the 2 or 3 years where it was totally inactive, it's just like, oh, okay, finally it's over, and then like it crop up again this year. I just can't help but wonder what their reactions are. Again, people might not give a single care in the world, but it's still a funny thought to me.
Oh yeah, it definitely is.
Same along the lines of how we occasionally get fans of the story who are neither part of the story or have any interest in role-playing the story, but still kind of keep one of their eyes on it, just like, I wonder what's going on with that.
Yeah, that's probably the strangest part to me, honestly, is that there are people who weren't involved, who don't want to be involved, who still care, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Because that's when it starts to cross into more heavy-duty fandom territory. And given the views of like Tree's video, I can't help but wonder what's going to happen when people are going to be able to be linked to a fully structured fanfiction. Because if there's one thing that enthusiastic dragon nerds will eat up faster than a video like that, it's a fanfiction that they can get lost in for however many days or weeks it takes to read through it.
Yeah, I think my favorite part about it starting up this year, though, is that it started up the week before my birthday.
Oh!
Yeah, and Greg was pulling us all back together, and I was like, this is the best birthday present anyone could have given me ever.
That is incredible. Because it happened for me right before my wife left for basics. So for me, it was also like that saving grace of, oh my gosh, it's everybody.
You're not going to be alone.
I'm not going to be alone.
Yeah, I got a new laptop about the same time. So when I went to Colorado 2.5 weeks later, I was able to take everything with me. Because since I do have an entirely different blog setup, I can't do mobile role-playing. Because I'd have to sign out of my normal blog on the app and sign into the other one, and it's too much work.
Right. Totally
So,
get it.
being able to take it places on my laptop was super helpful. Even though my laptop is a cranky little bastard. It's very laggy even though it's new. But what can you do?
Yeah. Well, I guess
it still functions, so I'll take it.
Yes. Something that a lot of people don't think to do. Run it into the ground first and then replace it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess like one of the last questions I got for you, just because I see we're just hit the 50-minute mark right here, is
We sure did.
Is like what's something that you would want your characters, or Clover in particular, depending on how diverse in the muse pool we're going in here, what's something that you really would have wanted them to do, an experience you would have want them to have before the close of the first Battle of the Grounded Dungeon?
Huh. Honestly, I would have liked to have done more with Shaxurome, my demon character.
Okay.
Because he only had a couple of scenes. And I would have liked to have made more use of him. I would like to make more use of him, but he's only been in a couple threads thus far for, Battleground Dungeon 2. But I honestly think that's most of it, is that I would have liked to have done more with him. I think Clover did most of what I wanted to. I wish I had the mental capacity to finish the wedding thread, but,
Hey.
Other than that, she did pretty much everything I wanted.
Well, I guess the two upsides to that is that writing's always best done when the mind is ready for it, so that wedding thread will get done right when it needs to. And the other side of it is for good old Shaxarome, he's a demon. It's not like he's going to be retiring or dying of old age anytime soon, so that leaves plenty of room for you to do stuff. Maybe not so much for the past unless you want to get into some AU, but definitely plenty of ground to cover for Battle of the Grounded Dungeon 2.
Yeah. I think, based on some of what Tree said, is, the Warden is not going to live forever because she's an idiot who charges headfirst into things.
Oh, that's sad.
Shax was around long before the Warden, and he will probably be around long after she's gone. Because, the Warden's mother has so many children. And Shax's mother only has 3.
Oh,
or
damn.
Maybe 4. So he's rather a lot more powerful because, the demon soul's not split into so many pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at how powerful the Warden is, that should tell you something.
Oh, it kinda does. She's terrifying all on her own, so any other demon that crops up after that makes her shiver, especially like her mom, and makes her very cautious the way Shaxarum does, it's that's that moment where it's okay, let's just duck our heads and move on past him to make sure we don't get him mad.
You also remember, though, is when Nala, let's say, broke Stonegit.
Yes.
Shax just circled him for about a minute, went, okay, and snapped his fingers and fixed him.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going home now, bye. Gone.
Stones is super concerned about that shit, because he's oh, come on. she doesn't need the stress.
Shax doesn't much care for the petty feelings of mortals.
Yeah.
They exist. They make fun things for me to make tapestries of. Okay, let's go.
Although there was that one moment where Stones got through to Shax just a little bit when they were looking at his tapestries together.
What season was that in? Because now I need to go find and reread that scene.
That was the middle of season 3 when Stonegit was in a coma and kind of trapped in his own mind, and Shaxstrom stopped by, and for whatever reason, I think it was because Stonegit took a honest and sincere interest and appreciation of his tapestries, while at the same time being look, your attitude towards humans is bullshit and you should stop. And I think between those two kind of conflicting ways of acting, it kind of set Shaxstrom off his game enough that he was oh, okay, you're neat. All right, thanks for looking at these. I'll see you later, I guess.
Yeah, I'd actually forgotten about that, but that also kind of explains why he just went and fixed Stonegit, no questions asked, other than, the hell did you do?
Right, and actually, I had forgotten about that scene when we did that threat. Again, our muses are taking on lives of their own and remembering shit that we forgot.
It definitely seems that way.
Oh, wait a minute, I might have a thread idea for you now, but we can save that for after the podcast is done.
Yeah.
Well, oh, yeah, go ahead.
I suppose, speaking of, if you don't have any more questions, that would probably be a good spot before we ramble on for another hour.
I was just about to say, I thank you very much, Cass, for joining me in the Grounded Dungeon for whatever this podcast turns out to be. I guess I have to go make a YouTube channel now so that I can actually put this on it. And also make replies to Tree's video for all the people making stupid comments underneath it who didn't read the description to just say, no, that's not Hiccup. That's me, Stonegit. I was having a bad day. Just read the description, please.
having a bad day. Yeah.
It was a bad day.
Let's call it that.
It was a few bad days. It was a while. It was a bad for a while. But anyway.
It was a bad month.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Anyways,
Cass, good talking with you. I'm going to pretend like we're not going to talk for a second after this because this is the formal end of the podcast and whatnot. And all of you have a wonderful time because I'm bad at outros, and that's the best I can do for you. Say goodbye, Cass.
Bye. Bye.